Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be installing the Idoing Headunit on my 2012 Subaru Impreza Limited. We're kind of inside it right now. It was super hard to frame an intro, so I just thought this would be the best way to do it. And it's a short intro, so we're going to do the full head unit and rear view camera install. Because this 2012 Impreza actually didn't come with a rear view camera, so it's something that I did want. I have a Seicane head unit in my WRX. I will eventually be going with the Idoing, so I'm going to start with the Impreza because the head unit in this car sucks and it desperately needs a new one. But let's get straight into this install. We're going to do a quick unboxing of the whole package, everything that comes with it. Then I'm going to show you guys how to remove the stock head unit out of the Impreza, and then I'm going to show you guys exactly how to install the Idoing head unit, as well as installing and running the cabling for the backup camera and the backup camera so we can get everything that this unit has to offer set up for this car, installed and working. Let's get straight into the video. All right, we're gonna go ahead and do a quick unboxing here. I haven't opened the box yet, so this is straight from Idoing. Let's see what the packaging looks like. Here we have our warranty card. We're gonna keep this and make sure our warranty is registered and that this is done properly, because it gives you a 24-month manufacturer warranty. It's pretty tightly packed. It's one of the skinnier units. The Seicane unit is definitely much larger, the one that went on my WRX, so this is definitely a smaller, more compact unit. However, it does fit the same car. This is gonna be our rear view camera. This is something that they've included that I wanted to get installed in the car, so this is the rear view camera. This is the OBD2 scanner that we're gonna put on too. This will give us real-time data for the Impreza. Here's the head unit itself, pretty well packed. It just looks like it's saran wrapped, but you can't ask for too much for this price point. Here we've got all the wires, and they have included trim tools, which is super nice. Very, very nice feature. And the rest of our wires. This is also a backup camera. They've sent us both models just so I could test for you guys, which is the best model, and extra wire. I'm gonna get all this stuff down to the car and get the stuff all installed, and then we're gonna do the backup camera and the OBD2 port. So let's go ahead and get it done. All right, so we're gonna start and get this head unit out of here. I do apologize, there's a phone mount up here that I don't wanna take off because there's adhesive, but it's actually adhered to the front piece and then to the back piece, so we're gonna be able to remove it all and it won't get in the way at any point. So like the WRX, if you've seen that video, we're just gonna start by popping the top clips off. I'm gonna show you a better view in a second. We're gonna start by getting those top pieces off using some cheap Amazon trim removal tools. I will link these in the description below. And then we're gonna go through our sides, keep popping them out, basically until we get this whole section basically popped off. We're gonna get the wiring for our hazards off, and then we have to go to the sides to loosen our HVAC controls, but let's start unpopping clips. I'm just going ahead here and use basically two jams of this pop clip tool while applying some pressure to pull it out, and we're already loose here. And we're just gonna slowly take our hands and pop out the sides. I use just our trim tools to make sure that we're not damaging anything here. And it comes out pretty easily. So that's pretty loose. And our bottom's loose here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and use a trim tool to unhook the hazard light. It can be a little difficult, but if you have a helping hand, you can get it undone. That gave us a little bit of purchase here to get it further out. Now you've got a couple options. You can go ahead and start popping panels if you want to get to the last clip for the HVAC controls. Or if you look here, you can actually see the HVAC controls. So I'm gonna use a trim tool to get in here and press that and hopefully release the entire HVAC unit, releasing the entire bezel. We took off the HVAC controls right there that was holding this on, and now we're gonna go through and take out our actual HVAC vent and our HVAC controls off this bezel so we can start really taking this thing apart. All right, so we're gonna start by doing the thing that I like the least about changing head units. We're gonna take out our actual vents, and there are just 4 clips around the vents, and we're gonna go through and work on popping them. So my recommendation is to pop the 2 bottom ones first, and then work on the top ones, and then eventually it'll come out. Just a little bit of force, and then that's your vent. Right now we're just gonna pop the hazard button out, and it's just a pinch. So we're just gonna pinch on both sides and push. pinch and push out, and this is our little hazard button. We're gonna go ahead and remove the 4 screws holding in the HVAC control module. So make sure you undo the clips here, which should come right out. And our control module is out. This is the HVAC control module and the knobs. All right, so the last step here is to remove the 4 bolts holding the actual physical head unit in, and there's bolts here, 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 and I'm pretty positive these supporting brackets are gonna come out. I'm not sure if we're gonna retain them. On the WRX, I did not retain them, even though you were probably supposed to, but I didn't really find that they did anything for me. So get these bolts out, but be very careful that you don't drop the bolts underneath into the car itself, because I've done that before and there's no retrieving those bolts, I promise. What we've done here and what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to pull it out just a little bit, just so it angles like this. And it's a little bit looser than it will be for you, but it'll be about that loose. You'll have just enough room to get all the top plugs out with your hand underneath. And then once those top plugs are out, it's gonna come out a little bit further, and then you do the next set of plugs a little bit further, and then so on. And there's three rows, I think, and we're on the last row right now, so I'm gonna get those out. All right, so what I've done here is I've now unplugged all the clips around it. I've put just a rag on the shifter knob so I don't damage it as it comes out. And then this thing just gets kind of wrangled out of there, and here we have the head unit. So this is the stock head unit. Just move that around. That's what the stock head unit looks like. This is what the back looks like. Lots of places for wires to go. You don't need to do anything smart here. They all are pretty much different sizes, so it's easy to put these back if you need to reinstall this. But let's go ahead and get the new unit in there. The first step to installing the head unit is actually to drop the glove compartment. I've already done that. We're gonna do that by unclipping the clip right here that you can barely see. You just squeeze both sides and it drops through, and then you have access to jam your hand underneath here, which is the cutout under there. I know you can't see it, we're gonna show it in a second. The cutout where you're gonna feed your wires. And what we're gonna feed here is we're gonna feed one of our USBs, the other split USB, and then we're gonna feed the GPS, which you can see here. We're gonna feed the plug side through up and under and into where the head unit comes out, and make sure that we leave all these things kind of in the glove compartment, and we're gonna tuck the GPS later, but the USBs are gonna permanently live inside the glove compartment in case we need charging. It's a little bit difficult, but you should just be able to pass it through to yourself. And that's just gonna sit like that, and we're gonna pull it a little bit further through than we would normally do, just so we have some space to install this. Then we're gonna do the same thing with the GPS, and our GPS is fed through. All right, so the next step is to take the harnesses that we've been provided and to hook all of them up. There's no secret here, just, plug in the ones that make sense. It's pretty straightforward. We've got a few unused connection points. Don't be afraid, you're not gonna reuse them. And I think I've got everything wired up here correctly, so we're gonna start, like any install, we're gonna start plugging it into the head unit, and once we think we're there, we're gonna get all installed in the car. The first thing that we are gonna do before that is we need to make sure that we feed the lines for the microphone, which is in here, and the lines for the backup camera to go actually back to the car, which is here. We're gonna actually feed them through this side, down and underneath the steering wheel, so we can get it up and under around the left-hand side of the car. I'm not entirely sure yet where I'm gonna mount the microphone. They've given some instruction on where to do it. I don't know if I love that option. I think if I was doing this like for somebody else's car, I'd probably spend a little bit more time tucking these wires, but honestly, I'm not gonna notice them if they're underneath the steering wheel. If I was doing it for someone else's car, I might drop some of the trim underneath here and just run it a little bit deeper. I can still do that if I want to, but I'm just pulling these out and through so that I've already got that connection, because once I start putting the head unit in, getting these connections, I'm not gonna wanna redo it, and I'm gonna wanna seal it up and then run all my wiring. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and install our HVAC unit into this head unit so we can start plugging in some of the plugs. I'm just gonna remove the protective coverings, whatever you wanna call them, and then let's get this HVAC unit in. All right, so I've plugged in the larger pin connector first, and then I'm just gonna start going through and plugging in the things that need to get plugged in here. It's not a pretty process and there's not a lot of room, but we're gonna kind of just go through. I've got to kind of figure this out with you guys because it's still somewhat of a mystery to me. You kind of have to learn as you go. This is the GPS, which is gonna go in on the farthest plug. That went in pretty easily. These are our HDMIs that are going in right now. This is going to be the wiring that connects to the video, which i.e. is going to be our backup camera here. Then we've got the microphone that's going to go in here. It's starting to get a little tight. I probably could have done this in a smarter way. And then this is our 4G connection point. I'm gonna plug it in and put it back in there just so I don't lose the pin. But I'm probably not going to install it. I might as well just feed it through the side. So essentially the last thing here, the last pin is our RCA audio, which I'm actually not going to use because I don't have an audio system that needs that. So that's pretty much it. All right, so if you guys are at this point in the video, the last thing we need to do to get the head unit installed, if you're only here for the head unit, to get the vents in, the hazard button in, and then we're going to push this thing in and it's essentially installed. But in this video, I am installing the rear view camera. So I'm going to post in the bottom of the screen right now the timestamp for where you should skip to if you're looking to skip the rear view camera install and you're only interested in the head unit install. Go ahead and skip to that timestamp right here. Otherwise, stay tuned because we're going to be wiring in the rear view camera. And even if you're not doing it, might be an interesting thing for you guys to watch. The next step to install the rear view camera is actually going to be pulling the head unit back again. And you're going to need something that isn't included is you're going to need a kit of just T-taps and ways to tap into wires. I'll link this in the description from Amazon. It's a good thing to have. I just bought a big package because I'm going to use these for future things. So, and what's key here is what you actually have to do is this is the long line that's going to run all the way around the car back to the camera. You're going to tuck that and attach that to the CCD AVIN, and then that's going to go into our video wire from before. Now, we need to tap this yellow wire into the number 2 wire, larger pin connector here, which is this brown wire in the number 2 spot, which if you look at our diagram, it is the reverse. So we're going to tap into that number 2 here, which is this wire. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a blue T-clamp on here. And I will do that right now, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. We've got our second wire here T-tapped. We've just used a blue T-tap. It pinches together like that, and then you close it with a set of pliers like that, and it actually taps into the wire like we have here. And then we've got our power wire here, and we're gonna put that into the other fitting, which is then going to plug into our T-tap like that. And then you can heat shrink it if you really want to get the connection. But to do this, we're going to need a crimping tool. And here's the crimping tool that I didn't have because I didn't have one at this size that I bought for this just off of Amazon. Again, linked in the description below. So if you are doing a review camera and you don't have these tools, these are cheap. This is like the cheapest decent one that I could get that is in the size that I need. So again, in the description below, couple extra things and tools you'll need to do the backup camera if you don't already have something like this. Okay, so I've now crimped the wire on. I've given myself a decent amount of space and I don't over crimp it. And then we're gonna go ahead and plug them in. And we've got it plugged in here. So it's crimped on, not over crimped, and then we've plugged it into the T-tap. Theoretically, we are done on this side. We're gonna get this back plugged in here. We're gonna push the unit in so it goes away for a little bit. Actually then going to run the wire, this wire itself, through around the car and back to the rear of the vehicle. Tucking the wire is actually a lot easier than you would imagine. So as before, we fed the wire underneath the steering wheel. So we just kept it underneath here until we got to this panel right here. And then this panel has a little ridge up here. So we just tucked the wire up to the corner of the ridge to keep it held. And then actually behind the seam, we just kept tucking the wire. So I know you can't see it yet, but it's just to here. And then you've got this floor panel, right? It's actually, I've already kind of removed it here. It's actually, you just pull it up and it comes off. It's super easy to come off. Our sill is off now, and you can see the wire that I've run. So I've run it all the way to here. I'm gonna keep tucking it, and I'm gonna feed it through here. Pretty simple. I'm gonna feed it through here. So I'm gonna try to tuck it under here and run it underneath this panel all the way through the back. All right, so I do apologize the car is dirty, but it was easy enough. Panel's back on, it's fit nice through, and I've tucked it underneath, and we're moving on to the back. But what I've done here is I've run the wire behind the back seat. You can see back seat here. I folded the seat down, ran it up and under, and then I've come up to the panel that has the airbag in it, and I've slid it under where the seat belt is. This is the seat belt, and I've come through behind this panel and pulled it through. Because we've got the panel off, we're gonna actually feed it through this grommet, and I've taken the grommet off already, so we're gonna feed our wire through this hole, which is right under here, up through the grommet, and that's gonna take us up here, and then we're gonna go through the panel up there. I've just taken the wire and I've taped a zip tie into it, and I'm gonna feed it with the zip tie so it's easier to feed. Okay, so we pulled this wire through. This is our yellow wire with the zip tie attached to it. We went underneath and we pulled it through where the grommet was. And then the next step is to remove all your trim paneling on your on the back of your hatch. This is actually easier than you think. You're gonna start with your middle panels, and then you're gonna do your side panels here. Side panels. And the side panels are gonna reveal two little screws that you're gonna take off, and that's gonna allow you to take off the big panel here. So we've just done all that, and we've actually got to pause feeding wire for a second because we actually need to go down to the tail light. And the tail light is gonna be removed by two screws here. That's all you gotta do is you gotta take the two screws out. Pretty simple and straightforward. So straightforward, I didn't even wanna show you, just two screws, and then it pulls out. It's got a little like slip mechanism, so just pull it straight out. And then what you're gonna need to do, you're gonna have to power your backup camera. So what I've done here is this is my reverse light. I've tapped into the ground and to the power of the reverse light with T-taps. And supposedly this goes to the camera. This isn't gonna be long enough, so you're gonna have to buy some of your own wire. I'm gonna cut this head off and hook it up and then reattach the head on the wire later up whenever I need to. So the next step is to hook these things up, and then we're gonna run them up underneath this, underneath the trim that I've pulled up. We're gonna run them up to this grommet here, and then we're gonna attach this wire to our other wire so we only need to pull one thing through this. I need to pull this down so this is exposed, and then we're gonna chase it through the car. Fed the wire, I pulled out this trim, I fed the wire up, and as you can see, you can just see the corner where it jumps over and all the way to the top where it's sitting right now. And then we're sitting up here. So I've pulled the grommet off the top too, and now we need to take both of these wires up through this grommet. And because our power wire isn't as long, I've just electrical taped it like to the full length of it, you can see. So as I pull my longer command wire through, eventually the electrical wire will come through again, and then we're gonna rewire it once we get to this point. So we've got more wire to run up and around and through. Okay, so we've run the wire, this is the command wire, up through along. The panels are gonna be covering this, and then I've just left it right here. And then we've got our power wire. I've actually attached more wire to it and reattached it. And then I'm just tucked where the attachment is. I wrapped it all in electrical tape and just tucked it back here. So that's now there, and I'm gonna run this up alongside of this. We're looking up at the panel itself, like this is the back. If you look through this hole, there's like a little grommet there. It's hard to see with the camera. Just push that little grommet out, and it's actually gonna connect to the outside of the car. I'll show you guys in a second. All right, so this is, you can see this is the license plate light right here. We're gonna mount our camera like this right here with some double-sided tape. I'm not gonna drill into the car, I'm just gonna use double-sided tape for now. But because we poked that grommet in, I can actually feed my wires back here, and it's actually gonna come out through that grommet in there. Now I need to seal that grommet so I have a weather-tight car. We're gonna use some butanol sealant for headlights to do that, and I'll show you guys that in a second, but I'm gonna start feeding this through. All right, so we're gonna take our two wires from our camera itself, and we're going to feed them back here. Now I'm going to use 3M adhesive, and we're gonna stick it as close to the center here. Probably not the best location. I mean, I could put it right here, and our wiring is gonna be pretty short here and just tucked around. But, you know, I'm installing a backup camera to have good centered view here. And I'm gonna apply quite a lot of pressure. You can never apply too much pressure when you're dealing with double-sided 3M tape. We're gonna connect our wires up. We've been testing it as we go here. Our last step is to reinstall our grommet here. We're gonna push that back up into the grommet spot as best as possible and use butanol seal if we need to. I've just cut out a step in the grommet itself so we can feed the wires through, and then I'm gonna seal that. This is stuff from Morimoto that you use to seal headlights. that I just happen to have, and I have a lot of it. We're just going to move this around a little bit until it gets warm and it'll become kind of sticky and something that we can close something off with. We're basically done with the rear view camera. We just have to set the angle of attack for the actual camera, but everything's buttoned up. Wasn't the easiest thing that I've ever done. Okay, so we're on to the last step of this install. Thank you for watching. If you did stay and watch that portion where I installed the backup camera for this car, certainly a trying activity. But we are essentially at the end of this install, and again, you didn't have to watch that if you're not doing it. The last thing that we need to do here with this car is we need to get the air vents and our hazard reinstalled here. So that just pushes back in. The air vents are a little bit more challenging to get back in. HVAC's in, and then we're gonna just connect our hazard with the plug, and we got our hazard light in, and then we have to mount the bottom first. But when the bottom is mounted, the HVAC vents are too high. So you actually have to pull it out a little bit, tuck your HVAC vents in, and you almost want to look to make sure to see that they're going in. And then they've gone in. So we're essentially in here. And we got to start at the bottom and give it a good amount of force. So it's almost in here, and then you just want to go through and make sure, don't put too much force in the corners here, but just make sure everything is in and flush. There we have it. We've got it installed. I know it's getting dark here. This took a couple of days. We're gonna jump outside in just a second here, and it'll be tomorrow, so it's well lit, and I will show you guys a little bit of the functionality. The one thing that I did want to tell you guys is I've got the speakerphone attachment for when you're using Bluetooth audio for calling. I'm actually not going to chase this through the car yet because I want to understand how good this is and whether I need it. I've had bad experiences in the past with other brands. This might be perfectly fine, but I'm just going to leave it exposed in case I need to like connect it to my shirt when I'm making a phone call. Okay, so we've installed the head unit on the Impreza. I'm super happy with the way it looks. This head unit has a little bit more depth than the Seicane head unit, and the layout makes a little bit more sense. This is our typical home screen that we're going to come to. You can preset your navigation, your radio, you can go to your apps, your Bluetooth settings, and video if you want it. I've set my navigation to Google. I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi right now. This unit does have Wi-Fi capability, or you can sync the Wi-Fi and broadcast a hotspot through your phone if you want to do that. Then you've got radio, but the volume's off. Radio is pretty straightforward, pretty easy to use. And I'm using the home button here. This head unit is very similar to many Android devices. I can drop down, do my Wi-Fi connect, eye comfort, data transfer, airplane mode, basically everything there. I can control my songs here, and then I can go to my Bluetooth, which is going to take me to my phone. I also have my contacts here, and then here's my Bluetooth music. Under the Bluetooth, I actually really like this, so it's all kind of in one suite for Bluetooth. I'm a big fan. You can run aux, you have your Bluetooth again, you got your calculator, but really what's important here is you have your app store. You can basically customize and get many apps for this because it's essentially like an Android. It's almost like a tablet, essentially. You can have a car link, which we are going to set up on this car, which just broadcasts stuff from the OBD2 via Bluetooth to this unit, so you can monitor things like your TPMS. I've set all the steering wheel controls that I want here. These are really easy to do. You hold down the function on your steering wheel, and you select the function that it does, and you just hit OK. Super easy to do. You got your equalizer. There's a lot of depth here in what you want to do. You can adjust your surround sound, bass enhancement, where you're going. This is the Idoing in-house GPS. I'm actually a big fan of this. This is the one that you can run without having to use Wi-Fi. This is just based off the GPS. This is actually a nice little feature, and it's three-dimensional, so you can move around, and it does indicate some of the gas stations. And for us, I only use Shell, so it's really important that I can see Shell stations, especially when I'm taking a trip. So I do like the regular, Idoing. Seicane had a similar one. We have Maps, which is what is set for, Maps is set as my default. I have music if I want to store it, but I'm using pretty much only Bluetooth audio. And then I have YouTube, so if you aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure you go visit your YouTube here and find the channel, and don't be afraid to subscribe. So this altogether is a pretty awesome head unit. I'm actually super pleased. I really do think it makes the interior of the car look a lot better. I think it speaks for itself. There isn't much to say here. Going from what this was before to what it is now is just insane. I'm gonna put together a review in a couple months of the Idoing, this Idoing head unit when I've had some time to actually get used to it, find all the quirks and stuff. But from a get-go, it's very similar to the Seicane. It was, easier to install because it's physically a smaller head unit. It has the same specs as the Seicane. The company's been pretty responsive. We did hook up the reverse camera. For the money that I paid here and what you would pay if you were looking for a head unit, this has got to be one of the best options on the market. The next couple coming months, look for a full review and guide on how to use this thing and my, couple months review of heavy use essentially, and see if I can find any quirks with this and if there are any downsides, because right now I'm not seeing anything. So stay tuned for that, and thank you guys for sticking through the video. I do appreciate it. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing, and if this video helped you, give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys.